We're getting ready to deal with the economic issue. We're getting ready to demand jobs and income. We're tired of working full-time jobs for part-time income. We are tired of living in run-down, dilapidated, rat-infested shacks and slums. We are tired of our children having to attend overcrowded, inferior schools.
Make it plain.
And we are tired of our men not being able to be men because they can't find work.
What's going on, everybody? This is Marcus, and I'm here with my lovely wife,
Shira.
And we want to welcome you to another episode of the Black Married and Debt-Free podcast. We're excited that you're here. We're going to be talking about a few things today, some things that I'm excited to really dig into. It's been a tough week, Shire. I want to get your raw feelings. I'm going to pass it to you. I want to get your raw feelings on everything that's happened this week and, just in general. And then you can pass me back the ball and then I'll kind of go into how I'm feeling.
Sure. I think America's heart is heavy. It has been a challenging week. And because it's been such a tough week for Black people in America and for America at large, for me, I'm finding that it's difficult to post.
Yes.
It's difficult finding words to say. I want to, and we want to empower people economically. That's part of what our call is. But it's also us grappling with whether or not it's appropriate to say certain things. We don't want to be insensitive. We want to be mindful. I know I shared some statistics with you last night. As I was working, trying to get together a post, trying to put some words, together. And it was hard to do. So what we're looking at right now is, as of May, 1 in 4 Americans have filed for unemployment.
40 million, was it 40 billion? 40 million Americans? Something at one point that was the number. Now it's probably higher now. But
1 in 4.
1 in 4. That's a lot.
And, we keep hearing our president say, as soon as this virus goes away, we're all going back to work. But that's not true, because a recent study out of Stanford University has determined that 42% of recent layoffs will result in permanent job loss.
Right.
So some people are not going back to work as maybe they initially thought. So it's such a challenging time. The unemployment rate for Black people as of May is 16.7%. Now, these are people who have indicated that they are out of work and are actively looking for work. So the numbers may, in fact, be higher. So for me, it's like, I have no words. I mean, we're talking, and we're going to get some words out today.
We're going to get them out. But
it's just such a tough time.
And Shara, I think you touched on something, because I feel like everyone in this fight has a role, right? So we're not necessarily activists or we don't wear hats that others may wear, but we have a role too. And we teach people about, we teach financial literacy, but like how you said, it's tough because we could easily come on here and say, man, you got to build wealth. You got to do X, Y, and Z. And, we're going to get into some of that, but it's tough to speak that when so many people, the statistics you just laid out, so many people are laid off, so it's kind of hard to find that middle ground, because employment is so important when it comes to paying off debt, when it comes to building wealth, when it comes to doing all the things we teach about. It puts you in a unique position because people need jobs, man, so I think that also is another reason why it's hard for us to post and it's hard for us to do the podcast. Now, we know that our listeners, we breathe fresh air into our listeners every week, and we have a growing podcast, so we want to bring you all some content. But that's just kind of some of the things that Shai and I have been wrestling with when it comes to posting and creating content on our platform. So
right. And we're not just content creators, but both of us and our listeners, we are living each day. You know what I'm saying? So I'm still, in the thick of it. There's so many emails that are being tossed around, even within my workspace. Right. And I'm sure there are other people of color that are experiencing this as well. Yeah. How do our colleagues approach us? As if this is something brand new, right. As if racism is like a new thing that they just found out about in 2020. And then on top of that, you have your workload, then you have your family, right. And then it's folks with children, and how do I explain this to my child, or are they too young, and maybe we don't want to share too much, right. Too early, because part of my job as a parent is to shield you and to protect you, but I also want to educate you, right. At the same time. So it's so many different hats that we're wearing, but also everyone is wearing right now. Yeah. And so I think, we have to do what we can to support each other. Yeah,
Shai, you touched on something, or brought up something that's, I think a lot of our listeners, African American listeners, can relate to, is when you're in the workplace, it's like you have to literally turn a switch off and kind of forget what's going on in the news and get back to business. And then there's like an unspoken responsibility to like educate your non-black coworkers, or educate the non-black people that you come in contact with, because like you said, you're constantly getting bombarded with it's so on the news that they're trying to make you comfortable, and in turn you're having to educate, maybe in some of those situations. And I find that that's been my experience. And so I know a lot of our listeners may be going through similar things, but that like you said, that gives us the feeling of, man, we have a lot of hats to wear, And so it's kind of hard to focus on finance and wealth when you're dealing with everything. But we know that is a large part of the struggle for us, and a large part of why we teach what we teach, because economics is a big layer in this whole ecosystem.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's not just civil rights,
yeah,
that we need as black people, right? But it's the economics piece, yeah, as well, and not looking for someone else to do it for us, right, but finding the strength, the courage, the creativity to do it for ourselves.
Right. So Shai, at this moment, I want you to go into something that you brought to my attention. You asked me today. He's like, Marcus, have you ever heard of this? And I've seen the image, but I never heard the breakdown of it. Can you kind of share that with our listeners, what you were sharing with me earlier?
Yeah. So we were talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so it is basically a theory in psychology that basically says, in order for someone to kind of move up this ladder, they have to have certain things. And so if you would picture a pyramid, at the base of that pyramid would be your physiological needs, like food, shelter, clothing. And in order for you to move to the next level, you have to have those things. And so the next level is safety. And so that is your personal security, employment, resources, health. And so in America, we are constantly, as black people, struggling, many of us, to meet our physiological needs and our safety needs. And so that has prevented us from moving up this ladder. And so the next thing is love and belonging. And so that's the relationships with our spouse, with our friends, with our family, feeling like we belong to a group, to a community. And in order to be able to feel like we belong to a group or community, we have to have our safety needs met. We have to have our physiological needs met. And then above love and belonging is esteem. And that is your self-esteem, your self-respect, strength, and freedom. Freedom to do the things that you desire to do. And then at the very top of that pyramid is self-actualization. And so at that point, you're walking in your calling. You're doing all the things that you know you need to do. You're operating with freedom, with liberty, and you are your truest and most, fullest self.
Right. Fully realized.
Yes, you are fully realized. And so what they have found is that a lot of the brilliant minds, of the world, like Albert Einstein, that they've been able to achieve I'm literally having a tongue twister right now.
It's
okay.
A lot, right. Self-actualization.
Yes. See, I need you. And so when you're there, you're able to accomplish great things.
Right.
But if Einstein was constantly worried about where he was going to sleep, where his next meal was going to come from, he may have never reached that pinnacle. And we as Black people in America, like I said before, we're fighting right now because we don't feel safe.
Yeah.
We don't feel safe in our homes. We don't feel safe leaving our house, driving to work and coming back home. And we always talk about, in some circles, how come Black people never do this? How come Black people never do that? How come we don't mobilize? How come we don't? And it's very difficult to do those things without having our physiological and safety needs met. So here we are stuck at the bottom, of this pyramid. And like I said, it's a theory in psychology, but is very well talked about, is very well researched. And do you have those needs met? Do you have love and belonging and feel like you're part of a community? Do you have esteem and self-respect? And have you reached that self-actualization? See, I got it.
Yes.
So that's what we're kind of talking about.
Shara, the deepest part about that is what I took away from that is you can't just start at the third level.
No,
like
right.
Levels 1 and 2, like it has to come into play chronologically.
Right.
You can't just, as much as we want to skip to this level, it's just not possible. You'll never be reach that top level and be fully realized until all those other things are checked off the list.
Right. And they seem so basic,
Right.
At least living in America, it seems so basic that I should be able to leave my home and not have to worry about being pulled over. Like I should be able to access food. I should be able to access healthcare. That should be basic. Like that should be given. But unfortunately it's not.
Yeah. So I'm really glad we're having this conversation. So we got coronavirus. We have.
Do we still have corona?
Right.
Like that all just kind of went out the window.
Right. We have people. We've been stuck in the house for 3 months.
Right.
Then we have the killing of George Floyd, along with Breonna Taylor. We have Aubrey. I mean, so many Black people murdered. And then George Floyd just took it over the top, right?
Yes, it's like the tipping point.
Exactly, and we've seen people express their frustrations, rightfully so. One thing me and Shar talk about is there should be a period after you speak on how upset you are with the George Floyd killing. But too often I'm seeing a but instead of a period when people express their condolences to the family, their condolences for what happened. I'm seeing too many buts.
But
I don't like the rioting, but
I don't like
the looting. I don't understand that. And to me, that's disheartening because you have to understand that when people feel like they have no other recourse, their only recourse is to lash out. So got to be understanding in the whole scope of it. We should be understanding. But, no, period. Let's do period there. One thing that we're seeing, Shire, is that the economy. I looked at my 401k, and that thing is back up. So the market, the economy is still moving, while we are protesting and showing our showing how upset we are with what's happening. So where do we where do we find our footing in that, Shire? I wanted to kind of touch on that a little bit, because the economy is still moving. The market is actually doing good, and there's actually people that are capitalizing on COVID-19. There's indexes that are created. COVID-19 index, which is a group of 100 stocks that are flourishing during the pandemic. And then now there's protest. I mean, people are capitalizing even in the trauma. So
yes.
What are your thoughts on that? Let me pause and get your take on that.
I know you about to take off. It's great, right?
Mm-hmm.
We still, the market hasn't crashed. We
Right.
still have a lot of our investments, but it's also scary because with so many people out of work, the market can still flourish.
Yeah.
So where do the
It's-
people fit in?
Exactly.
In that,
It's
what
like
I'm saying?
the rich get richer. That quote we've heard so often. It's really true. It's real. Like we're seeing it.
We're seeing it.
We're
And
seeing it play out.
Exactly. And even when coronavirus was, the pandemic was in its start, the president was constantly referring to the market. Look
What the market's doing.
Right. And it sounds like you hear the market more than you hear about stories of real people and what people are really experiencing. Yeah. So for me, it's it's good on one hand, but at the same time, it's I'm also just a little bit woke.
Yeah.
Because if the market can do well with a reduced workforce, what does that really say about the future of America?
Wow. And I think for me, Shire, it just makes me think what can we do? We see the game, we see how the system is. Where do we fit into the system? And I think that's kind of the next phase, the next conversation that we may want to have is okay. So how do we fit in as a community, as Black people? Where do we find ourselves in this game? Because like we said on the front end of this, so many people are out of a job. I don't want to hear about what the market is doing when I ain't got a job.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's kind of the thing that we wrestle against. So we're not going to answer that in this podcast. But what we want to do, we just want to start the conversation, get your mind churning, get you to, kind of see that, man, the rich are truly getting richer. And it's going to be a defining moment for us. Because if you don't somehow figure out how to play that game or figure out where you fit in that game, you will be on the wrong end of it, And so it's unfortunate, it's ugly, but we're seeing a separation. The middle class is slowly thinning out,
right?
And it's tragedies like this, pandemics like this that really illuminate that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it's just crazy.
Right. And that's why, this conversation and spaces like Black Married and Debt Free are so vital.
Right.
I want to be in on those conversations.
Right.
I want to know, what's happening. I want to be in the know, so it's important that these conversations take place.
Absolutely, Shire. As I sit here and think, what are some good ways, some simple ways, and these are things that we've already shared on this podcast, but what are some simple ways that Shire, I think we got to get back to the basics, because now we're dealing with the simplicity of employment, so the plane started to elevate on this platform, and we were talking about building wealth, and we still want to do that. There's individuals who still have employment who are like, hey, I'm still on the wealth building side, but I think it's important for me and you, Shire, to maybe go back to some of those basics of watching where we spend our money. Watching, there's power in our dollars and not just spending. Shire, you were talking earlier today. He was like, this might not be a good time to just be buying stuff just to buy stuff. Do I really need a new shirt, a new pair of jeans, and maybe what I have can get me through until times get a little bit better. So no matter what situation that you're in as a listener, we want to, give you some guidance there. So what you think, Shire? I mean, we talk about the basic needs need to be met first. So I think that's
absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that that's what a lot of people are doing.
Yeah,
they're using their funds to make sure that their basic needs are met.
Right.
And then if you are in an unstable market, or if you would consider your employment to be not as stable or seasonal, I would be building up cash reserves just in case you're out of employment for a while. A lot of times they say rainy day fund.
Right.
No, you need a rainy week fund, a rainy month fund, a rainy few months fund.
Yeah.
That is what the situation is really, really telling us. So for folks who are paying off debt, I think that's a great thing to do. But also make sure that you have some cash reserves on hand just in case you might need it. And another thing with people of color is if you're doing okay, somebody that might hit you up. I mean, this happens a lot in Black families, and it can be we can do another show on this about helping out your friends and family. But many of us are called upon, we're looked to help. And that's just what it is for a lot of people.
And Shire, while you're there, I want to just jump in. Now, you're speaking more on sponsorship and less about partnership. So we encourage potential group family economics and living with each other and partnering, but the handout thing, we want to be careful in a time like this. You don't want to just be giving out handouts, right? That's kind of what you're leaning towards.
I didn't give an opinion.
Okay, but
yeah,
that just sparked something in me. Yeah.
I loved how you framed that. I really do. Because a lot of times people have a hard time saying no. So I mean, that could definitely be a whole nother topic.
A whole nother conversation.
But I really like what you said.
Yeah. So many of us have cried. Many of us have been
prayed
and cried, but once you have the opportunity to get those emotions out, we just encourage you to see where you can fit in, strategize. I keep hearing that term. Sometimes it's
strategize, pivot,
and figure out, okay, so what is next for me and my family? Is it if employment's not looking great, is it entrepreneurship? Is there some opportunities there? Is it wherever you can get in, man? We encourage you to do so, and we hope that we're able to just give you guys like a little break from everything that's going on, if nothing else, and also give you some stuff you can take away. So, Shire, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just be encouraged. Take it one day at a time. Make sure you are caring for yourself and practicing self-care.
Yeah.
And we're going to be right here with you, to the extent that we can be, and just hang in there. And we hope that our listeners all reach that level of self-actualization.
Yes.
See, I said it right. And that's what this platform is about, disseminating information for the empowerment of Black people.
Yes, I love that. So thank you guys for checking out the podcast. We're going to highlight you one. We're going to highlight you all on the next episode. Talk to you later. Peace.
Bye.